Mr. Chairman. Mr. McClellan, I appreciate your attendance today. During the course of President Bush's administration, there were 5,626 petitions for commutation, which were received and processed by the Office of Pardon Attorney, which is a part of the Justice Department. And of those, prior to Mr. Libby's commutation, President Bush had granted just 3 petitions for commutation. And so in other words, he actually denied 4,108 of those petitions, and the other ones were closed without presidential action, presumably by the Office of Pardon Attorney. And this reluctance to grant mercy on these commutation petitions is consistent with with President Bush's conduct with respect to death penalty cases when he was governor of Georgia. Isn't that Texas, governor of Texas? Isn't that correct?
Yeah, I believe so. Yes.
He presided. He had the distinct opportunity to preside over a record number of men and women. In fact, 150 men and 2 women, a record unmatched by any governor in modern American history. He presided over 150 executions as governor of Texas and commuted only 1 sentence. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then all of a sudden,
I trust your numbers. I haven't looked back at it recently, but
yeah. Then all of a sudden, we've got White House confidant Scooter Libby, and many Americans believe that there was an attempt to silence Mr. Libby. Many Americans believe that there was a misleading of the American public in this administration's march to war. There was an intentional lying to the American public, and many Americans feel that when Ambassador Joseph Wilson had the gall to reveal the deception to the American public, that he was punished by the administration, which ordered the revealing of his wife's identity as a covert agent, Valerie Plame. And many people feel that the vice president is responsible for Scooter Libby putting his head in the meat grinder, if you will, and that in return for Scooter Libby putting his head in the meat grinder, he went through a jury trial, an extensive jury trial, after which he was convicted of obstructing justice, making false statements, and 2 counts of perjury, and having been sentenced to 30 months in prison. And his motion for bond pending appeal having been denied by the trial judge, and then also denied by the Court of Appeals in affirming the trial judge's denial of the appeal bond. And Scooter Libby was headed to jail, to prison, imminently. And on the same day that Scooter Libby found out that the Court of Appeals would not reverse the judge's decision to deny the appeal bond, that's when President Bush issued a commutation, which is inconsistent with his previous history as governor of Texas and president of this country. And without consultation of his own Justice Department, which was responsible for prosecuting Mr. Libby, without consultation with that department or its Office of Pardon Attorney, he decided to issue a commutation of that prison sentence. And there's some who believe that he did that so that he could make sure that Scooter Libby would not at some point spill the beans on the vice president or someone else. Do you believe that is the case?
I don't know. Again, it's one of those questions where I can understand why people view it that way.
Even in the situation where Mr. Bush, strike that. Now I'll move forward. Do you have any reason to think that that would not be a reasonable scenario that I just laid?
Well, we haven't had any real answers to these questions that you're raising, so there's a lot of suspicion there about that, and I understand why people would reasonably come to that conclusion.
It is a reasonable suspicion.
It sends a terrible message. It was a special treatment, in my view, that Scooter Libby received, and I think that the president should not have made that decision, but that's his right to do it.
In your opening statement, you lament the permanent campaign culture and constant spin that has corrupted Washington. Stripping away all of the spin, please tell us candidly and directly, what do you believe were the administration's real strategic motives in misleading this country and the American people into war in Iraq?
Well, I think the driving motivation, and I think I talked a little bit about this earlier, was in the president's view. I can't speak to every individual, but in the president's view was this idea that we could transform the Middle East by coercively going into Iraq, that Iraq would be the linchpin to change Iran into a democratic state, with you have Afghanistan and Iraq on each side of it, a democratic nations on each side of Iran, and then it would go from there. That was the thinking. The president has spoken passionately about it in numerous settings where I was with him.
Were they ever
The gentleman's time has expired.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I could just conclude that one question. Well, did you ever hear of any discussion during the run-up to war about the possibilities of gaining control over Iraq's vast